Hey guys, so this puzzle won first prize in a competition in 1926. It's checkmate in 3 for white. It's white to play. The pawns are going forward. Black's pawns are going this way. This was a problem composed by Oldrich Duras. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that at least somewhat correctly. This was a strong chess player from the early 20th century. He actually was awarded the Grandmaster title in 1950 when FIDE first started awarding that title, but he was also a chess composer, and he composed close to 100 puzzles in his career, most of which were mate in 3s. For whatever reason, he really liked to compose checkmate in 3-move puzzles. And this one, as well as the next one that I'm going to be showing you, were the only 2 that I could find where he won first place. So these are some of the best ones. Let's go ahead and take a look. And let me just warn you, these are not easy at all. So if you are a beginner watching this video, don't feel bad if you can't solve them. I actually probably recommend you just sit back and enjoy the solution. But for everyone else who is brave enough to give it a shot, by the way, I should mention, I did not solve these myself when I first kind of looked at them for, 2 or 3 minutes. Maybe if I would have spent an hour looking at it, I might have figured it out, but I did not solve them myself. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. Now, if you'd like to pause, go ahead and do that. What do you think the solution is? And then we will talk about it in just a second. All right, so if you had a chance to look at that, let's talk about what's going on. So to be honest with you guys, when I first saw this position, I couldn't believe that there wasn't an obvious mate in 3 when you see there's so many pieces around Black's king. You also have a queen over here. You also have this pawn, which you can get another queen. I was like, surely there must be some easy solution to this. And what you'll find is that even though we have all these pieces, they're kind of not really coordinated to deliver a checkmate, right? Like if you move any of them, then the king can suddenly escape. You move the bishop here, the king can just take it, or it could start running over here. You move the knight, then this bishop could get captured. Or if you move that bishop, then it opens up a square for the king to run to. It's not that easy. And you'll find that like capturing or pushing or doing something here doesn't actually make sense as well. And you can't really deliver the checkmate as fast as you need to, right, in 3 moves. So the only way to win this position with white in 3 moves is to play the crazy move bishop to b7. This is the only winning move, and there's actually an idea behind it. And the idea is that it's putting black in Zugzwang, which basically, if you're not familiar with that term, just means that black, since they are not allowed to pass, they have to play a move which is going to be bad. Okay, and the funny thing is about this move, and this is, I think, why this received first place in this competition. The funny thing is black has a lot of moves at their disposal, and they're all bad for like a different reason. All right, so let me just give you an example of some of the most obvious. We'll actually start here with the bishop. What happens if the bishop takes the pawn? Well, then white has this really interesting move, queen to a8, which was not available before the bishop moved, but since the bishop moved, now we can play queen to a8. And what we're doing here is, if you look carefully at black's king, it's almost stuck. Okay, we need this to be defended. It's almost stuck. There's one escape route right here. So by putting the queen on a8, we are defending this pawn and getting ready to capture here with checkmate. And the ironic thing is black can't stop it. You could try to run, but we still take there, and it's still checkmate. And any other move that black does, whatever, it's still checkmate because now the queen is defending the pawn, right? So that's pretty cool. And that was the solution if black decided to move the bishop over here. Well, let's say they played knight to e6. Well, what do you notice about knight to e6? Well, now the h pawn is undefended. So we're not able to come over here and use this idea to checkmate black. But what we can do is capture this pawn. And guess what? Now we have a new idea, queen to d1 checkmate. And the point now is we just leave our bishop here and the queen comes in. It also stops the king from moving. It doesn't really matter what black does, any random move. We're going to play queen d1 regardless and checkmate. So you notice how this is a completely different checkmate idea than queen to a8, right? We have queen h5, queen d1. Over here we had, queen a8, bishop takes a6, right? So that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's go back. Well, maybe, black is going to do something else. So what else can black try? Let's say they push the pawn, because now we can't go to h5 because the knight. We can't go to a8 because the bishop. What are we going to do? We take the pawn here. Queen takes h4. And now we have an even different mating idea. What's the mating idea here? Do you guys see this one? Well, if you said queen to c4 checkmate, you are correct. So completely different idea is that, okay, the king could move here if they want, but it's still queen to c4 checkmate. Or they could do some other move, again, queen to c4 checkmate, right? So completely different. I mean, I say completely different. It's still utilizing this diagonal, but in a different way than the queen a8 one, right? Where this was the idea. Now it's just queen over here. We also saw this one. So you can see all of these different checkmate ideas on 3 different moves that black has played, right? So let's go back. There's another move here that I didn't consider. What about f5? So black plays f5 because they want to keep this shut down, keep this shut down. They don't want to let our queen out. We have an amazing move here. If you'd like to pause and try to find this one, now that you kind of are starting to see the idea here, what can we play here? If you had a chance to do that, the move is queen to g8. And by playing this f-pawn forward, black has opened up this diagonal. And guess what? Now we're coming to c4 again via a different route for the checkmate. Now you might be saying, well, hold on a second. What if black plays knight to e6 and stops us, right? Check this out. Queen is defending the pawn, so we can also play bishop takes a6 now, checkmate, because we have this idea. So that one was like 2 different ideas built into one, right? Where we still have the checkmate. And I think that I cover all the moves. Let's see, f6, same idea, right? We still play queen to g8 with the same idea of coming over to c4. And we did the bishop, we did the knight, we did the pawns. Oh, the king can move to e2, and in which case we simply just take here right away, checkmate. So that's pretty easy. And that's it. I believe we covered all the moves. If I missed any, let me know. But, oh, knight to e8, I think we didn't cover. This one actually is not really a great try for black. We have a lot of options here. The one option would be queen to c3, again, kind of coming for this diagonal. But regardless of what black plays, it's checkmate. You did have to find this really difficult move, bishop to b7, which had a lot of ideas, but one of them was to come over here to a6 and deliver the checkmate. Now, I want to point out something interesting. If you set a move like bishop to, let's just say, d5, thinking that you could come over here with the same idea, well, now when black plays f5, do you remember what our move was? Queen to g8 coming over here, right? Well, now when you play queen g8, you don't have checkmate next move. And so it doesn't work. And so it was actually crucial. And that's why bishop b7 was the only move that white could play to win. Wow. Let's go ahead and look at the second mate in 3, which also won first place prize. This one was from 1904. All right, guys, so here's the second position. And again, white's going forward. So black's pawns are going this way. And it's mate in 3, white to play. Of course, don't feel bad if you can't solve it. I didn't see this one either when I first looked at it. It's very challenging and very tricky, but go ahead if you would like and pause and try to have a go. Mate in 3 for white, and then we'll talk about the solution. And actually, I'll go ahead and give you a hint. It's the same theme as the previous puzzle. So you need to find some sort of Zugzwang to force black to make a bad move. Okay, but how exactly you do that? Well, that's not the easy part. So go ahead and take a look, and then we'll talk about the solution. All right, if you had a chance to do that, let's go ahead and take a look at the solution. Now, this one is actually interesting in that there are 2 solutions, both different moves, but they both kind of have a similar idea. The moves are, so if you said either of these moves, you would be correct. Knight to e6 and a knight to b5. Now, I'm not sure if this was intended when they created the puzzle to have 2 solutions, or if only one of these was found, but when I put it into Stockfish, I noticed that it was telling me there's 2 solutions. So both of these moves are the correct answer. Now, to understand this puzzle, you have to understand one key idea, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Queen to e5 check is almost a mate in 2, okay? Because if the rook takes, you have checkmate in 2 moves. Look at this. Is that beautiful or what? The rook is defended, and the king is just stuck. But it's not checkmate in 2, because instead of taking with the rook, black would take with the pawn, which unleashes the rook now and pins the knight to your king. So you can't deliver the checkmate, right? You can't move out of a pin. So it's super close, but it doesn't work, okay? That's the idea that you have to keep in mind, this mate in 2 idea, and then you will understand the solution actually quite easily. So knight to e6, let's just take a random move for black here. Like, let's just say they just push this pawn, okay? What we are threatening by playing knight to e6 is that now we can play queen to e5 check. Of course, if the rook takes, we already saw this, knight to f6 checkmate. Nothing changes there. But if the pawn takes, pinning our knight again, right? Well, now we have another knight which can deliver the checkmate over on g5. Okay, so by playing knight to e6, we're essentially setting up a secondary knight to deliver the mate after queen to e5. All right, so that's kind of the main point. And then you have to kind of go through all of black's options and say, well, what if black just takes our knight, right? What's going to happen? Well, by taking, oh, sorry, let me back up this pawn. By taking our knight, they now open up this move, queen takes e6 check, which was not available before because the pawn was there, forcing the rook to block, and then knight f6 again, right? So a different version of that same idea. All right, let's go back and let's look at another move for black. Let's say black tries to, I already showed you if they move this knight somewhere. What if they move it here? Again, queen to e5 check. And if the pawn takes, knight takes g5. So same idea, right? Nothing really changes there. What if they push this pawn? Well, now there's an even different idea. Queen to a1. And this one is fascinating, but you're still threatening knight to f6. And the funny thing is, black has no way to stop it. Like, they know what's coming, they know what the mate is, and they can't stop it. They can just do a random move, and guess what? Knight to f6 is happening regardless. So that's a cool one. And let's see if there's some other moves that we didn't cover. b3, again, queen to e5 check, and of course, we still have knight takes g5. And let's see if there are any other moves. There's rook moves that I didn't talk about. So let's say the rook just tries to slide over here. Queen takes d4 is checkmate right away. So that's another idea, right? The rook has to stay there to guard the pawn. Rook to e5 right away, just walks into captures, and then again, knight to f6. So you see it's all different versions of the same idea, right? But there's a lot of different moves that you have to consider, which makes it really interesting. g4, I don't think we looked at. That just falls to queen f4 because the pawn no longer defends. And so you can see how knight to e6 wins the game. Now, let's go back for a second. Knight to b5 also was a winning move for similar ideas. Let's just say that this knight moves. Now we can play queen to e7 check, and the point is we're forcing this guy over, and then knight to f6. Okay, so very similar idea, but just another version. Let's see, what other moves could black play? b3, and we have a new one here. I don't think we've seen this idea. Queen takes d4, the rook captures, and now knight to c3 is the mate. So that's kind of a weird one, but it works. Let's see, if d3, again, we've seen this idea, queen to a1, and the point is that knight f6 is happening and you can't stop it, right? What else? If the rook, did I talk about if the rook takes this? Queen to e5 check, and now, remember before when the pawn captured, the rook was pinning the knight? It's no longer there. So here we go. Checkmate this way. So you can see how there's no moves for black, right? Like any move that black plays, there's some sort of solution. On knight to e7, yeah, we just take it. I think I've covered them all. So pretty nice positions, not easy at all, but they are pretty satisfying once you understand the idea. Like I said, these are both first place prizes. So let me know in the comments if you actually solved these. I would be curious to know. Like I said, I didn't solve them, and now I didn't sit down for an hour, but still, it was a lot of fun looking at the solution with Stockfish helping me. Hope you guys enjoyed these, and I'll see you next time. As always, stay sharp. Play smart. Take care.